Hello, everybody. I've got a story to tell, or maybe a few, all jumbled up together. I'd say from about 6 years of age, I was fascinated by planes, and I even dreamt of being a pilot, flying through the clouds. When I was 10 years old, I had my first opportunity to travel on a plane. The joy of watching the clouds through the windows was surreal. It was as if I could touch the fluffy cotton balls floating around in space. My mom, my younger sister, and I were on a jet plane from war-torn Sri Lanka to find peace in India. And of course, to join my older sister and brother who had already arrived there months before. In 1983, the year before we moved to India, I was an unsuspecting, joyous child who loved to play outside on the streets with my friends in Jaffna, Sri Lanka. We did crazy things. We climbed trees, we jumped into pools, we did so many things. But I was completely oblivious to a brewing tension between the country's military and the militant Tamil youth fighting for separation. One day, after playing with my friends, I skipped home happily and started hopping up the stairs. Midway through my joyous hop, I felt the earth shake underneath. A military tanker had just shot at a church around the block, causing thunderous sounds and earthquake-like vibrations. I lost control, and I was Humpty Dumpty rolling down the stairs. On the darker side, though, a civil war had broken out in Sri Lanka. Interestingly, within weeks, I got used to sleeping with sounds of gunfire, nonstop gunfire. Over the next few months, I saw planes, several of them. They'd zoom past at low altitude, and when they went off site, I would hear a massive bang. Kaboom, an aerial bomb deployed to the devastation of some unsuspecting civilians. By the time I was 10, my parents had decided that leaving Sri Lanka was going to be best for their children. Their first choice for a new home was India. And the journey to India was my first ever plane ride. It was the rainy day, and the short flight rather, from Colombo, Sri Lanka to Trichy, India, took longer than it should have because of bad weather. And that's when I understood what turbulence was. The small craft we were in bounced about in space. I must say I was torn between joy and fear. The joy of a roller coaster ride versus the fear of falling down to earth. Needless to say, I landed safely in Trichy as a Sri Lankan Tamil, starting a new life in a new country. Though Tamil was the spoken language in my new home, the local dialect seemed different. The accents were different too. And then the phrases I would use to articulate my thoughts were not in alignment with local lingo. For example, when I said I was getting ready to go outside in my dialect, it would mean that I was going to the toilet in the local lingo. As you can imagine, I was the joke among my peers. Young kids were always mean to their peers. Yet, the younger me survived the insults, partly because I thought, hey, I've seen war. I've seen people die on the streets. Meager differences in dialects are not the least of my worries. And most importantly, I've never cared to worry about things that I had no control over. And I must say that perspective is perhaps an outcome of my mother letting me and my siblings face the world and ref out at a young age. Though I'm not sure if she did it by choice or by circumstance. Nonetheless, it certainly helped me look at the big picture all the time and have a positive perspective. A decade passed and I became a naturalized local Indian Tamil. By this time, my mother had moved out to Canada and had sponsored me and my dad to join in Canada. I, my three siblings, and my parents had nearly a decade of constant separation because of war and turbulence. despite trying our best to be together. My dad had to be in Sri Lanka due to unavoidable circumstances. My parents by then had sent my elder sister to Canada when she was a teen. My mother joined her a couple of years later. My brother was still in India, but in a city 500 kilometers away from me. And my younger sister, she was in limbo land, but in the comfort of friends in Malaysia. These were times before cell phones, let alone digital communication apps like WhatsApp or Messenger. So for me to talk to my family, I would write snail mail and wait for a couple of weeks for them to call me at a local public use phone number. Yeah, it wasn't easy. It was a turbulent few years before we managed to get back together as a family at the end of 1993, right here in fabulous Canada. 2 years later, united as a family, safe from war and persecution, I ventured on to pursue my childhood dream of flying a plane. I signed up for a tough program at Seneca College in Toronto, managed to beat 1,400 others to join the prestigious pre-aviation and flight technology program. I was among 140 selected students. The program was probably intentionally designed to seek the best students. The second semester would only see 70 students enter it, and after 2 semesters, only 33 students would make it to the aviation and flight technology program, where you would actually learn to go to ground school and start flying lessons. Turbulence struck again. At the end of the second semester, I was student number 34. And you were only allowed 1 shot at the program at that time due to its high demand. Life went on. Several unwilling attempts at numerous courses, and years later, I went on to do many unexpected things in life, from becoming a radio television personality who championed youth mental health, to director of public relations at a media group who co-chaired Canada's first ever hybrid digital radio programming. Opportunities further opened up. I traveled with the Canadian Prime Minister on a significant bilateral relationship tour between Canada and India. I even went to the APEC summit on that tour and stopped at several cities around the world. A few years later, I even ran for federal office, twice might I add, both attempts falling short by very small margins because of things outside of my control. Each journey had its share of turbulence, but I'm richer for the experiences. I must say, interestingly, I've had the joy of experiencing the dawn and dusk from perhaps 30,000 feet up in the sky in several countries, all from the cockpit of Royal Canadian Air Force 01, the Canadian Prime Minister's secure aircraft, the Canadian version of Air Force One, if you will. Funnily, I've even jumped off of a plane solo from 13,000 feet just for the thrill of it. But I've never sat in the pilot's seat to date. It's not by choice, but by circumstance. My dream to be a pilot is still alive. Incidentally, flying through life and all its turbulences has been invigorating enough that I feel like I'm already living my dream. From peace and love to war and separation and a plethora of other experiences, life has been like a Cessna 150 caught in incessant turbulence. That said, while my story may have highlighted several life changes or challenges, my message is to the contrary. To me, life is all about perspective. My perspective has always been that there is a positive angle to everything that happens to us. And I've been able to see the silver lining in each turbulence-causing dark cloud. Things happen, and that's how life goes. We're the ones deciding whether they're good or bad. I choose good, always. It is that perspective that is helping me see tomorrow as a new day to look forward to, which may still be written with more turbulence, but spreading our wings and flying through it all is what I think life is all about. Thank you.